Hello.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Awake to Oneness Radio. I am Caroline Chang, your host. The mission of Awake to Oneness Radio is to inspire the world to awaken to the universal truth of oneness. Spirituality and science are both telling us that we are literally all connected. We are literally all one. What you do to another person, you literally are doing to yourself. So once the world awakens to this universal truth of oneness, there will be peace on earth. Today's topic is vertical orientation in your life with Dr. Sue Morter. I had the honor of meeting Dr. Sue this past May at the Agape Revelation 2015 celebration in LA. I was so honored that she is with us tonight. She was one of the featured presenters at the Revelation celebration, and she was amazing. And I'm so honored to have Dr. Sue with us here tonight. Welcome, Dr. Sue, to Awake to Oneness Radio.
Thank you very much. It's a great joy to be here. I look forward to seeing where we get to go with our conversation today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I do know a little bit about your work, but honestly, I had not heard of you and your work until Agape Revelation. And it's just, I'm so amazed and so honored because you're doing wonderful work. If you can please share, I know a little bit about your history, but if you could please share with our listeners how you came about doing the work that you're doing now.
Sure. The work that I'm doing, first of all, is it's kind of many-fold, but I started out in healthcare, and I had as a doctor, had regular clinical scientific research behind everything I did. Everything was very structured and reproducible and planned and predictable, etc. And I had an awakening, basically, in the midst of a career that was going along just fine. I was very, very driven and very successful, and things were happening just right on cue, like life is supposed to go. And I actually was feeling very unfulfilled in the midst of all of that, which we would call success. I was feeling very empty inside, that I didn't really believe that this was all that could be experienced or accomplished in this life, that it just felt like something was missing. There was something more. And so I was drawn into meditation, and in meditation I almost instantly began having these transcendental, transformational, life-changing experiences, some of which early on awakened me at a level of consciousness that I did not even know existed, so it certainly wasn't a goal that I had, and it was truly life-changing for me. It was profound. I was me, but I was not in a body. I could see 360 degrees around me, the same, equally, in a light so bright that it was 10 times brighter than the brightest day in the desert that I had ever seen. And I could see the earth beneath me, and I was embedded into it up to like what felt like it would have been my knees. But I wasn't in a physical body. I was more a ray of light, just a golden ray of light coming from this brilliant white space into the form of this kind of crystalline structure that was embedded into the planet. It was just a bizarre, experience if you had certainly never been oriented around this, and it was an awakening to another dimensional version of who we are. And every time I took a deep breath, in the middle of that, I could see the horizon just rising and falling, and it was this beautiful pink, iridescent, translucent, like blanket that would just rise and fall with this huge grace of like if you could imagine a stingray swimming through the ocean in slow motion, how their side fins would just, they're so graceful, and this was just so massive. As far as I could see in every direction, this movement was happening with each breath that I took, and what I knew was happening, I had a sensation that light was coming into form through our beingness, and it was coming into the generation of the vibration that we call love. So I knew that in that instant that this is what humanity is actually doing. To whatever degree we allow ourselves to be completely, fully present in any situation and simply be there as the truth of who we are actually bringing love into being in this dimension. And so when you speak about awakening to oneness, to the oneness consciousness, what I am describing is a version of us that is closer to that unified field, that unity version of humanity, than what we dial into when we're just walking around in the normal daily activities using our five senses the way that we've been trained to use them. And so the most important thing that I really want to share with that moment, there are so many things to share, but I will say that the most significant of them all is the sensation, the feeling, the knowingness that I had at that moment. There was no place to go. There was nothing missing. There was nothing to accomplish. There was nothing wrong, nothing broken, nothing to fix. There was complete fulfillment, complete satiation, a union of all aspects of who I am. And it was an opening, a gateway to the knowingness that each of us had all along that was awakening in me for the first time. And so I spent the next 15 years, it was about 15 years ago, and I spent the next 15 years really completely consumed with how to recreate that experience for myself and how to teach others to begin to experience life in that same way, whether it was through a meditation experience that someone else would have that deep sensation, or whether it would simply become a way of living that was reflective of that state of consciousness that is at the root of all of us. And what I find is that different people awaken to this that I'm describing through the workshops that I teach and the work that I do in a variety of ways. But everyone has a common response, that they are uplifted and they are grounded and anchored in their deep authenticity and their essential self, like they have never been before. And so that's kind of a long answer to your question, but I just wanted to kind of set the stage that this is not just a conversation about the theology or the psychology of how to stress less in our lives and meld more with our neighbors and feel a sense of kinship. I would love for this conversation to be a very deep-reaching one for all of the listeners, so that we each have the opportunity to tap into a very deep reality that is available to all of us, that not all of life is aware of, because the outcome is truly transformational once we do this.
Yes, I agree with you so much. It took me a while in my journey. I think the power of now, when I read The Power of Now, I understood it. But actually, awakening for me came in 2007 when I watched What the Bleep. And there was one sentence that was said that woke me up. The biggest problem in the world today is the illusion of separateness. Mm-hmm. And a light bulb went off for me. It's like when I really understood that at my core, not just intellectually, but when I understood at the core of my being that we are literally all one. There is only one thing in the universe, and that's God, the universe, or whatever name you want to give it. But it's just one thing, and we're all connected to that one thing. We're all, so that woke me up. And then when I read The Power of Now, after awakening to the truth of oneness, I understood that to really tap into that oneness is to be present, to be in the now. It's not yesterday. It's not tomorrow. It's in the now. And I've meditated off and on throughout the years, and I just find that knowing, just at the core of my being, knowing that in that moment, in that now eternal, perfect now moment, everything is perfect, just like you described. And that is such a beautiful experience that you had that you could share with everybody. Tell us a little bit more about what people can experience in your workshops.
Well, there are a variety of things that we do. I take people through meditative practices and teach them a variety of things to do with their eyes closed, but I'm also very, very interested in what to do with your eyes open, because we need to integrate our inner world with our outer world, and we need to bring our focal point of orientation, meaning where we sit, more deeply into our core in our waking world when we're out walking around and doing life as life calls us to do. And I guess it's best described by if one could visualize that there is an essential self version of them, and there is a protective personality version of them that is kind of a coating around the outside, a protective layer, if you will. Many would call that the ego, but what I find is that if I reference it as the protective personality, people are more inclined to have a conversation about it, but the ego resists having an ego, and so people don't like to have an ego, and so it kind of takes a little longer to get to the point in those situations. So if we just call it, it's a protective personality. We developed ways to protect ourselves when we were developing very young in this life, and it's actually part of the process. It's part of why we are here, and it is a given. And as that is developing, we have a tendency to come out to the surface of life and present in the ways that we think we're supposed to, or we do what we see others do, or we develop ways of being that seem to fit in or to belong or to please the big people who are taking care of us in those years. And so what happens is we develop a kind of a false version of ourselves in an attempt to be good or to fit in or to belong, etc. And then we build relationships from that place. We never come back home. We continue to sit out there, and we build relationships, and we choose careers, and we engage with the world from this false self, this protective personality layer of who we are. It can also be referenced as a performance personality, the high performance, like we just show up and do the things that we think we're supposed to do instead of really following our authenticity and doing the things that we choose to do or want to do. And so in that, there is a real conflict, and ultimately it can never lead to fulfillment because we're in our heads. We're analyzing and calculating and predicting and determining what we should be doing, what we should be feeling, what we should be thinking, instead of really referencing, hey, here's who I am. This is what I'm doing. No matter what, this is how I'm going to interpret life from this deep, authentic place. So everything becomes fear-based instead of being really based in authenticity, in love, in presence. Right. And so what we're doing now is, the awakening process for anyone is really recognizing, I'm living out here in this outer layer, which perceives me as separate and different, and I have to try to be good or try to succeed or try to do the right thing. And it's complete waste of our faculties. It's using our resources completely differently than they are designed to be used, very rudimentally and fundamentally and primitively, actually. And so, what the invitation here is to find ways to come and anchor our awareness deep in our core. For instance, if everyone, wherever they are, whether they're sitting in a room or sitting in a car or whatever, and listening, if you just look at something across the room from you, just look at it, and then once you're looking at this object, make an effort to pull your energy back inside of you and continue to look at what you're looking at. Just be the one behind the eyes that are looking at the object. And when we do that, we will feel an energy kind of pull back into the body again that we didn't even know that we were throwing across the room. Like, let's say somebody walked into the room that has significant meaning in your life, someone or someone that you don't know at all, a stranger, and they walk into your space, and suddenly you feel yourself your energy is thrown to them, and in this moment, the invitation is pull your energy back, continue to focus at the person or at the object, on the person, but keep your energy drawn back into your core. And what you'll start to realize is that we've been dispersing our energy constantly and continuously all of our lives and didn't even know it. And the more we disperse that energy, the more fear response we stir in the body, and the more fear response we stir in the body, the more we feel that we need to protect ourselves, which is, for instance, one of the things that creates the illusion of separation. We are operating in a way that causes fear, and that fear stimulates the need to protect. And if I'm operating in a reality that senses that I need to protect myself, then I am separate from whatever it is that I'm needing to protect myself from. So we generate duality simply because we've never really been taught how to operate from a place of unity physiologically, like geographically, in the body, in the physical body, we can begin. So, my start was in healthcare and in physical medicine, in chiropractic, and dealing with bodies and holistic approach to healing and to life. And so my immediate interpretation of these circumstances was through those eyes of how do we embody this experience? What role does the body play in this unity consciousness? And it plays a very huge role, and we can use it to our advantage to teach ourselves how to awaken to oneness. And a simple little exercise like what I just described, you can even just stick your hand out, full arm length, straighten your arm, and stick your thumb up like you're giving a thumbs up, and look at your thumbnail. And then make an effort to pull your energy back from, when you're looking at your thumbnail, pull your energy back inside the body and be the one behind the eyes looking at your thumb. Like, be aware of the one on the inside of this body that's doing the looking. We oftentimes think about be the observer of your thoughts, be the observer of your life experience. And I'm asking you to not just be the observer, but feel yourself in your body observing. Feel yourself in your body being the one that's looking at your thumbnail in this moment. And what it does is it stimulates the nervous system to recognize, and it stimulates the tissues in the body to recognize simultaneously that there is a literal orientation inside my physical body, that if I could just become aware of that, then I might not be so quick to deal all my cards out and throw all my energy outside of my own space. And when I keep it collected and quickened in the core of my being, it has much more power. It has much more laser-like power to pierce the veils between our own layers of consciousness and the aspects of our wholeness, like our power and our love and our ability to be creative and visionary, and our ability to tap into our wisdom, and our ability to speak our truth or to take action when action is called for. Many of us find that we can either be strong or be loving. We can be smart or we can be patient and kind, but oftentimes we have a big challenge being all of those things anytime we need to. Having access to all of them all of the time is ultimately what I have found essential if we're going to live in a place of unity and oneness, because it's only then that we start to experience ourselves as whole and complete, and then we stop trying to protect ourselves. And when we stop trying to protect ourselves, then we're available to see how much love there is, how much beauty there is in life, how easy and graceful life can be. But until we start having those sensations, forget about it. The body is built for survival, and as long as we're only tapping into bits and pieces of our consciousness, then we're run on that survival circuitry. So many, many, many things, as you could see, that can be done. Simple little ways that we can start to work with moving our energy, the energy of our being, and coming to know it, and allowing the mind to land on the truth of who we are as a spirit being. And it takes unattaching our identity from those old habits if we ever really want to awaken like that. So simple little steps that we can begin to play with to sense and feel a distinction of being able to move the energy of our whole being at will, move it around at will, instead of just being controlled by our external environment. You mentioned early on in the show today about the vertical orientation, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. That there's a constant flooding inward from overhead in our physical body of pure, unaltered energy. And one would call that spirit or divine intelligence, light, high-frequency energy. It's pouring into the crown of your head constantly. I mean, it's measurable. It's completely scientific now that we have the technology to measure such things. There's a constant influx of pure energy, infinite possibility. It's available. It's like a smorgasbord. It's just pure energy that could be used for anything that we choose. And it passes all the way through our body, straight down through our body, and into the earth. And the earth steps it down for human consumption, and it rises back up out of the earth and comes back up through the body. And it's been kind of stepped down like a transformer. And as it's been stepped down, it comes up through the root of our being. It comes up through the tip of the spine. It comes up through the legs and the pelvis and the tip of the spine into the rootedness of our being. And it's constantly trying to rise up all the way back up and out through the crown of the head. And then it circles around to the left and to the right and in front of us and behind us and creates this torus figure and circles around the outside of the body and comes in the root again and comes up the spine and out the top of the head and around the sides of you and in front of you and behind you and into the root of the spine again and up again. It's constantly also continuing to pour in from overhead the fresh energy, that pure light energy, which is coming all the way down through the body and into the earth, and then it comes up from the earth again and comes into the root, and it's trying to come all the way up through the body and out the crown, just as I was just describing, out the crown and around the sides and then back in at the root again. And it's attempting to clarify all of the systems inside the body and align them so that they allow the vibration of that purity to be what comes up and out through the body upward to the same degree that it is clear and pure as it's coming down in from above. Our job is to let that happen. Our job is to forgive things and to let go of things and to recognize things and to empower ourselves and to be in our hearts and to speak our truth and to trust our guts and to allow ourselves to dream and to be creative, because when we're doing all those things, we are refining the filters that energy is having to pass through. When we are refining those filters to a great enough degree, we are operating here in the oneness as creative source energy itself. And until then, we're merely human. Until then, we're trying to get over the stuff that happened 15 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 25 years ago, or we're still carrying grudges, and we're still caught up in our fears and everything that is human. Okay? And our job is to allow ourselves to be human until that takes care of itself because of the loving presence that we are bringing to our humanity. If we can bring loving presence to all of those components of ourselves, what we end up doing is clearing the filters, scrubbing them down, cleaning them up, so that what comes through us and comes out of us is as pure as what comes to us, what comes into us. So this energy is pure as it's coming in from overhead, and it is pure as it's rising up from the earth. And our job is to keep it refining itself by loving all of the parts of us that we can find, by embracing all of the characteristics of us and of others. And one of the things that I loved about what you said about when we do something to someone else, we're doing that to ourselves. That whole idea about that there's only one of us here is a beautiful part of what I work with in my workshops, in teaching people that the outer world is just reflecting back to you what's going on inside of you. And you can't see it on the inside, so you've projected it onto the outside. And if someone out there is irritating you, it's a part of you that is irritating you. If someone out there is inspiring you, it's a part of you that is inspiring the other parts of you. And if you're arguing with someone, it's just two parts of you arguing with themselves. And all of this is just a reflection of what it is that you're attempting to realize, to recognize, to awaken to in this lifetime. And that is, in fact, that there is only one of us here. And the way to unity is through love, because the more that we can love, the more we dissolve the differences, the veils in these parts of us internally, which also then allows us to behave in the external world in a manner that is engaging and collaborative and compassionate and loving and leading in ways that allow patience and presence naturally. So this vertical orientation, please think of it as this energy running vertically through your system, and you are designed to be working with that constantly. And we get drawn into the outer world in a horizontal fashion. We start thinking that what we see out there, it needs to change, but really it's just a reflection. It's trying to give us feedback as to how to awaken and clear the filters and clean up house on the inside. In reality, that's all that it's really doing. That's its purpose. The outer world that's the outer world's purpose, is to give you feedback as to how you're doing with cleaning this system in its vertical flow. You are an energy being. We are energy beings, and that energy is a stream of consciousness, and that stream is streaming through this body in a vertical orientation, a vertical fashion. And our job is to continue to scrub down the filters so that that flow of energy gets to maintain its pure, real, raw presence of wholeness that it is, without us, messing with it to the degree that we just almost can stomp it out with all of our angers and our angsts and our frustrations and our attitudes and dispositions that continue to insist that our happiness is dependent upon the outer world behaving in a certain way. And when in fact our happiness and our wholeness is experienced when we recognize that the outer world is just following our lead. It is literally following the lead of the collective consciousness. So I'll stop there and see where you want to go with the conversation.
Well, everything you said it resonates so much with me that, like you had mentioned earlier that everyone that, like all the participants in your workshop, they tap into that energy differently. And I believe, like for me, when I feel I'm getting too lost in the outer world, I'll stop and I deep breathe. For me, it's like just focusing on my breath and centering myself on my breath. And one of my favorite places to go is the lake. I live near a lake, and I love to sit by the water and just watch the waves and how the sun sets and the sun just like diamonds on the water. It just, that all those things just center me. And I know for everybody it's different in the sense, but it's the same thing. We want to connect with that energy, and people have different techniques. So I always say to people, you have to kind of look within for all your answers. What works best for you. Kind of tap into, what feels right for you from the heart center, not from your head, from your heart. And for me, it's meditating at the lake, or just if I feel like the day is getting crazy or I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll just stop. I'm like, okay, I'll stop and I'll center myself with a few deep breaths. And it brings me back to that center. But everything you said is how I'm trying to live my life daily, moment to moment, is by understanding if I'm having a disagreement with someone, it's that person is another aspect of myself. I even was thinking this a couple of days ago, just yesterday morning, I'm thinking about sending out some thank you cards to people that I perceived in the past hurt me. And like I said, I know a lot of people won't understand this, but I have to thank them because I know that they're doing, like you said, I believe we're creating our own reality. We're creating this holographic 3D reality, and it's coming from within us. So whatever they did or said to me, I wrote the script for them. If they said the worst thing, hurtful thing to me, I wrote that script for them. To say that to me, it's just a reflection, because I'm just projecting whatever is coming, whatever I'm experiencing. I created it. I projected that out into this illusion of a world to come back to me. So I said all those, not that like there's a lot. There is a list. I wrote down the list yesterday morning of people I want to send thank you cards to. And I'm just going to thank them for being themselves. Because I don't believe I wrote a blog about a month or so ago called "No Apologies Needed." No one has to apologize. It's not about apologizing. It's not about forgiving. It's about I see you, and I understand you are just being you, but you also are just giving back what I asked for you to give to me to help me awaken. And because there was something you said, and I wrote it down. Here it is. You said, and I wrote this down, I orchestrated the circumstances in such a perfect way that it landed me in a situation where no one was supporting me, and I was all alone. And it was perfect because that in itself allowed me to realize who I am. So I wrote that. I was listening to a video of yours, and I rewinded it several times so I could write that down because that was like, wow, yeah, I did that. I orchestrated it in a way where I could think that I was unsupported and alone, because I know in truth we're never alone, we're never unsupported. The universe is always supporting us, but we can feel separated, we can feel alone, and we created that situation just so we could awaken. So that's why I said I need to write some thank you cards to people I perceived at one time that had hurt me. So what do you think about that idea?
Well, I think it's fabulous. I take groups of people to sacred sites all over the world, and we just got back from Peru in June. We took a group to Peru, and we were visiting Machu Picchu and so on. Well, part of that trip, it occurred to me that there were a couple of people that were wrestling with some things back home, and they were kind of talking about it a little bit, and I gave everyone an assignment. I invited them to go and purchase something a gift for the person who is creating, some of the greatest challenge in their life at this time, or that has at some point. Just buy them a gift, and we're going to take it back home, and you can send it to them, and you don't have to, or whatever. But it was the same principle that if as we can start to bring unconditional love and presence to all types of circumstances, we begin to action what you are describing. Now, what you are describing, I call the bus stop conversation. It is as if when you're catching the bus to come to planet Earth, as a spirit to get here,
right.
You hang out at the bus stop and you conjure up a conversation with the other people at the bus stop, and you basically, ask each other what they're going to do when they come into this life. What are they going in for? What are they going to do? And someone says, well, I'm going to have a level 10 experience of forgiveness. And someone else says, well, I'm going to do courage, or I'm going to do happiness, or whatever. So this person who is going to come in and request a level 10 experience of forgiveness. Everyone asks, well, what's that mean? And they say, well, it means that somebody's going to have to do something that's nearly unforgivable so that I can experience full-on big-time forgiveness. Like I've been there before, and I had a level 3 or 4 experience of forgiveness, but I'm really interested in the big tamale here, like to know everything that forgiveness could give me, could offer me. And so the conversation continues, and people ask, well, like, how's that going to happen? And you say, well, somebody's going to have to, I guess, do something that's completely, nearly unforgivable. And so then people start asking for examples, and they say, well, my parents are going to go through the Holocaust, or someone's going to drink too much and get behind the wheel at happy hour and cross the center line and hit my car and take, half my family from me, or, these kinds of things that are just horrific. Right. And I'm going to live with the pain of all of that, and the anger and the frustration and the angst until I just can't bear the pain anymore, and something is going to, cave. Something eventually I will tire from suffering from my anger or my hurt or my abandonment, and I will drop in to a deeper place of myself and find a part of me that I didn't even know I had, in order to be able to release, to let go, to find my peace again. And so, it is those perfect circumstances that seem so incredibly horrific that actually create the perfect dynamic for me to awaken through. And yes, it was a request at the bus stop before I ever came in. So it's like a soul contract idea. Exactly. is what we're referencing. And and I really feel, Carolyn, that we have to act as though this is the norm. And we have to talk about this with our friends and our people and all of the listeners, to just take this on as absolutely this is the way it is, and let's get on with it. Because I've been interviewing on this topic for about 15 years. I've been living in this for all of my life. I grew up in a family where this was a conversation that we were having. And quantum science was the dinner table conversation about us creating our own reality, et cetera. And so, I'm 50. I don't know how old I am. I'm 53 years old, and
we're the exact same.
Wonderful. So for 50 years, I've been in this conversation, and I love the fact that I'm now in conversations with people who are doing interviews, such as yourself, who are exposed to these ideas and are also having your own interpretations and your own versions of this. And this is the conversation that's being shared. And it's time for this conversation to be the way things are, not just this, hey, let me tell you this like really bizarre concept. Try this one on for size. What do you imagine this? This bus stop conversation. Imagine that. Right. What if we were like to say, done, okay? We don't have to talk about it like it's a what if, or that it's something off center or bizarre or new. What if all of our listeners just started recognizing that, hey, we're pretty amazing creatures, and we are designing our life experience, and we can choose to do anything with it that we choose. We can choose to have any experience, any interpretation, any version of these experiences that we choose to have. We can we are creator in that way. We are made of creative source energy, and allow it. Let's just allow humanity to step on through that threshold, And
Right.
you're really inspiring me tonight, just by saying that you want to send thank you cards. This is a project that I've been putting to people for the last decade. I've been inviting them to do that, whether you ever give them the card or not. Just by running it through your own circuitry and allowing your mind and your heart and your neuroanatomy, your neurophysiology to line up to this new version, this new way of looking at your old life, and build some patterns in your consciousness, so that you will interpret, so that everyone begins to interpret present and future circumstances in the same light. So if something's happening today in your life that's challenging or hard, know that at some point it's going to be one of these things you would send a thank you card to, right? So let's go ahead and interpret it through the filter of gratitude while it's happening, instead of having to wait 10 years until we can, in retrospect, look back and say, that even though it was really hard, I really gained, I learned, I gleaned, it grew me. Let's just know, let's bring it into the present and say everything that's happening and everything that's ever going to happen in my life experience, I am orchestrating it so that I can awaken myself to my magnificence. Period. That's what we are here to know,
That is so true. Matter of fact, I shared this idea about sending the thank you cards with a cousin of mine yesterday morning when I came up with the idea. I lost my son a year ago. He made his transition on July 1st, 2014. And the day after my son's funeral, a cousin said something very cruel to me. And not the one I was talking to, a different cousin. I was talking to yesterday a different cousin, saying that I'm going to send that cousin a thank you card. And he said to me, what she did is unforgivable. I could never forgive that. And I said, nothing in my book is unforgivable. And I have to thank her because I know I love how the bus stop conversation, because I got it from a book, a children's book. It's The Little Soul and the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh.
Yes, I was just in a conversation about that book 2 days ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from that book, and I read that book to my 5-year-old grandson. And I've read it several times. I love the book, The Little Soul and the Sun. And I said, if we really embody and embrace what the message from that book is telling us, then I asked her to say those cruel things to me after I just buried my son. So I have to, when it was said, I forgot who I was, I forgot who she was. But now, a year later, I know who I am, I know who she is, and I have to send her a thank you card. And now, when I spoke to that same cousin that said to me, I can never think about forgiving her for that. He said to me last night, I've been thinking about what you said all day. He said he's been thinking about that thank you card all day. So even though he was so adamant, like I could never forgive her, by the end of the day, his heart was lightening.
You're right. It can't not, because what you are saying is speaking from the place I'm talking about, this pure energy running through you. And you're awakening to that pure energy, and you're operating from that place of this pure flow energy through your system. You're coming from there, which is why awakening is more important to you than holding grudges. Awakening is more important to you than the rightness and the wrongness of what should be said and what shouldn't be said. You're more interested in who you can awaken to being than you are anything else. You're living in your verticality. That's what I'm talking about. So when you speak from that place, everyone hears it. Some people can recognize it right away. Some people can recognize it the next day. Some people will recognize it 10 years from now. But the key is to maintain our sense of fulfillment by living from that place of vertical flow, so that that we are fulfilled instantaneously. We don't need the cousin to come back and say, "Oh, I got it," in order for you to feel the fulfillment of living how you're living. But it's of course it's nice when that happens. But that's not, that kind of conditionality doesn't exist in our lives when we're knowing and sensing and feeling ourselves awaken right in the face of life itself. While that's happening, it is the most fulfilling sensation we can have. And when we operate from that place, little things, little nuggets fall out of our pockets, just come rolling out of our mouths without us even realizing it. People come to me all the time and say, you said this thing 5 years ago and I just got it. I get notes and cards and letters and emails all the time, every day, about, when you said that, it made me so mad, but now I totally, 5 months later, I get it, or whatever. And I'm never coming from a place of, hey, you better get this, or you're going to suffer.
Right.
I'm just offering up my interpretation of life, and I'm more interested in awakening than I am in righteousness. It's just a better ride. It just feels better,
Yes, and I also envision, or I would like to envision the sending out the thank you cards to people, and you have to do it from a place of pure heart, that you understand the dynamics of that relationship, and you send the thank you card just thanking them for who they are, and just saying, if you had an argument, I forgot who I was in that moment. I forgot who you were in that moment, and I have nothing but love for you. But then if they get it, they do the same thing, and it becomes a ripple effect. It just starts to, they pay it forward.
Absolutely, that is exactly how it works.
That would be a wonderful thing. Just having that ripple effect. Doing by sending out your thank you cards, it might inspire. Say you send out 10, and maybe it just inspires one of those 10 to start sending out cards. It's just. But I love the idea that you had about the gift too. That's if you have a long list. I've already got a list of 10 people. If you have a long list.
A card might be more economical.
Yes.
Yes. But what's really beautiful about humanity and the fact that we are energy beings, and what really happens every time we think a thought and every time we land in love, what really happens is our entire energy field blossoms. It just changes color, it changes vibration, it changes frequency, and so, right now, if everyone that's listening just thought of one person that they would send one of those thank you cards to, and filtered it through their own bus-stop conversation idea, and just came into your heart space and just offered them gratitude, even if you don't know exactly what the gift has been from them, what it is that the whole thing is about, just the fact that that there's so much charge between you, there's such a charge inside of you about this person or this situation, this thing that happened. If you could just know that charge equals the medicine, and in proportion, that there must be real medicine in this for me, real awakening juice in this for me, or it wouldn't be so big in my life, and hold the space, that one day there'll be a thank you card coming, or maybe in this moment I'm just sending an energetic thank you note, because it really does have a physical impact in this world when we bring that frequency through our own physical bodies and let it land in our own hearts and minds simultaneously, because we are energy beings, and this reality that we're living in is one of energy. Everything is energy. So what we don't realize is that everything that we think is just as potent as everything that we say and do. It's the same. It has a more physical reality to it when we take action, when we actually write the card and send it in the mail, for instance. But the true essence of everyone and everything is energy. And so just sending an energetic version of that begins to transform the life, the sphere of engagement that we are living inside of our own, worlds individually. So the energetic thank you note is also very, very effective. If it just doesn't seem to be possible for someone to pick up a pen and actually say thank you so much to this individual, I've been through some of the biggies that life has to offer. And I will say that the person that would be referenced as the perpetrator in those kinds of exchanges, I have a very deep gratitude for, because of who I have become in the course of my life, given the strain and the struggle of processing some of those things mentally and emotionally. What that has done for me has been second to none. So I am deeply, deeply grateful for those what would have been considered inappropriate, actions taken, wrong, hurtful, damaging types of, descriptors that have certainly been placed on those kinds of things in our culture. I would have it no other way. Apparently, right? I requested it at the bus stop. So it's a big thing for people to embrace. But once we do, it changes the game, changes everything.
Yes, it does. It does. And it also brings us back to the fact that we are really all one. And like I said at the top of the show, what we do to another person, we're literally doing it to ourselves. So whatever a person is doing what we think they're doing to us, we are truly doing it to ourselves. So we have to, embody that truth of oneness. And that's where I try to stay, day by day, moment by moment, is in the truth of oneness and live it. Because I do see, just from being on the Internet, it seems like there's a lot of people believing in oneness, but the encouraging thing now is to actually live it, not just say you believe in it, but living it in it. And so, like you said, the bus stop conversation, and I love the children's book, the Little Soul in the Sun. If anybody would want to pick it up and read it, it's probably in every library, by Neil Donald Walsh. But it's a beautiful children's story that explains it so beautifully and simple. Even a child can understand.
Even me. Yeah.
I can't really. We are actually coming down to the hour, but can you please share with our listeners, number one, how they can find you and your work and your events, and get more information on what you're doing, and also of any upcoming events you'd like to share with our listeners?
Certainly. There are. The easiest way to get in touch with the events that I do and the calendar of events is on my website, which is drsuemorter.com. It's drsuemorter.com, drsuemorter.com, and in there, there's a calendar of events that shows every place that I'm going to be speaking and the things that we're going to be doing. I travel across the country and do workshops, East Coast to West Coast, and everywhere, and several places in between. I'm in LA a lot and Denver a lot, coming to the East Coast as well. In Indianapolis, in the Midwest, I'll be in Chicago and in Santa Fe, just a variety of places throughout. So if you can just look at that calendar of events, I teach coursework called the Energy Codes, and what I'm doing is really encouraging people to understand this conversation that we're having today, and finding practices to embody that, to really bring it home and let it land, because we are seated in duality. We grew up in duality, at least perceiving a dualistic world. And now here we are talking about unity and oneness, and we don't, it's like the fish doesn't know it's in water because it's always only ever been in water. until you throw it up on the bank, it doesn't even have a reference point for what's the difference, what are the distinctions. And so because we are so deeply seated in duality, a lot of my workshops are really teaching people how to reprogram the brain and how to allow the electromagnetic energy flow through the body to be recognized as spirit, because science and science and spirituality are really, they're having the same conversation. It's just that we have perceived them as two separate conversations. And technology has advanced enough now that through quantum science we are recognizing that, wow, it's all one thing. There's only one thing happening here, and it is good. And there are no exceptions to that. And so I'm teaching people how to embrace that and how to bring it into their lives in a really practical way, so that it affects their relationships and it affects their ability to have a job that is fulfilling, a career that is fulfilling to them, deeply fulfilling, and to have a financial situation that reflects that, and to allow the abundance to happen in their lives in a real and tangible way, and not just talking about these things theoretically. So my coursework is the energy codes. It is about the practical application, how to make it real for us. And so that is the main thing that I'm doing now. I still have a private practice where I once a month people come in from all over the place when they see me speak at the various engagements. They want to engage in the physical treatments that I do to help remove the blockages to subconscious interferences that have gotten stored up along the way from our old disillusionments and our old disappointments and hurts and aspects of our lives that are unresolved. And so I access that. It's what I used to do full time, and now I travel around the world teaching these concepts. I never knew that this is what I would end up doing, but it is such a passion and such a joy. So then people come to the health center that I have in Indianapolis and engage in some like a 3-day treatment program where I'm working with removing these subconscious interferences for physical healing, all kinds of physical issues, as well as emotional and spiritual issues as well. So there's a combination. I do a lot, and all of it is in the spirit of recognizing that we are magnificent beings that are intended to be living freely and magnificently. And if that's not happening, there's a reason. It's not because you're missing something. It's just because there are some circuits that haven't been connected. We haven't connected the dots in certain ways for ourselves, and that can be done. So it's my great joy.
Well, wonderful. For me, like I said, I awoken to the truth of oneness in 2007, and since then I have been kind of studying on my own daily. And this year is the first year I have all of this and I want to share it, and that's when I came up with the idea of the radio show. I'd never done a radio show before, but I said I want to help awaken the world to the truth of oneness, because once I awoke into it, it changed my life. And also, like I said, my son made his transition last year, this time of the year, and I always wanted to do a nonprofit foundation, and so now I want to do it in his honor and have a center here. I live in the Poconos. I love it here. I love to have a center like Agape. It will be the Kyle Center, and Kyle stands for Keep Your Light Expanding. Kyle was my son's name, but using his name, Keep Your Light Expanding Center. So the Kyle Center here in the Poconos, which is part of my vision to be very similar to the Agape Center in LA. So that's
beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this year is like I said, the first year I'm actually following my passion. I don't know where it's going to lead. I just am following it. Following my heart.
Well, beautiful. When I know when people are following that vibration, that waveform in their lives energetically, that the universe definitely steps up to support that. That is what nature is made of. So there is no bigger team member that you could have on your team than nature herself. So when you're following your heart, you are in alignment with what is meant to be, and everything else that is conflicting with that vibrationally will dissolve in your path. It just has to. That's the way nature always finds itself. And so when you are stepping forward with this kind of intentionality and passion, I know that it will manifest. And I'll be happy to come there and give presentations. You just let me know.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. And Reverend Michael also one of my visions is to bring the Agape Revelation celebration here to the Poconos. A new convention center just opened up, beautiful convention center, and I know that I emailed Reverend Michael, and he's like, yes, I'd love to come to the Poconos. So, yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Just say when. We'll be there.
Yes. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sue. I am so honored, and thank you. To me, sometimes words just fall short. When my heart is so full of appreciation and love, I can't even find the words sometimes, because words just don't do it. Does not do the feeling the justice. But thank you. I am so honored and so grateful that you took time out to come speak to my audience. And the other thing I love about Internet radio, even if people are not listening live, they can listen to this conversation anytime on the Internet, which is wonderful.
Beautiful. Yes,
well,
it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much. You have a perfect and wonderful weekend, and I hope to get to see you soon one day. I'm not in L.A. that often, but, hey, maybe next time I see you, you'll be coming to the Poconos speaking at the Kyle Center.
You say the day. I'll be there.
Yes.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you so much. And you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Okay,
thank
and
you,
a
dear.
great weekend.
And thank you for all the listeners. Blessings. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Mm-hmm. Good night.
Good night. Hello.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Awake to Oneness Radio. I am Caroline Chang, your host. The mission of Awake to Oneness Radio is to inspire the world to awaken to the universal truth of oneness. Spirituality and science are both telling us that we are literally all connected. We are literally all one. What you do to another person, you literally are doing to yourself. So once the world awakens to this universal truth of oneness, there will be peace on earth. Today's topic is vertical orientation in your life with Dr. Sue Morter. I had the honor of meeting Dr. Sue this past May at the Agape Revelation 2015 celebration in L.A. I was so honored that she is with us tonight. She was one of the featured presenters at the Revelation celebration, and she was amazing. And I'm so honored to have Dr. Sue with us here tonight. Welcome, Dr. Sue, to Awake to Oneness Radio.
Thank you very much. It's a great joy to be here. I look forward to seeing where we get to go with our conversation today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I do know a little bit about your work, but honestly, I had not heard of you and your work until Agape Revelation, and it's just I'm so amazed and so honored because you're doing wonderful work. If you can please share, I know a little bit about your history, but if you could please share with our listeners how you came about doing the work that you're doing now.
Sure. The work that I'm doing, first of all, is it's kind of many-fold, but I started out in healthcare, and I had as a doctor, had regular clinical scientific research behind everything I did. Everything was very structured and reproducible and planned and predictable, etc. And I had an awakening, basically, in the midst of a career that was going along just fine. I was very, very driven and very successful, and things were happening just right on cue, like life is supposed to go. And I actually was feeling very unfulfilled in the midst of all of that, which we would call success. I was feeling very empty inside, that I didn't really believe that this was all that could be experienced or accomplished in this life, that it just felt like something was missing. There was something more. And so I was drawn into meditation, and in meditation I almost instantly began having these transcendental, transformational, life-changing experiences, some of which early on awakened me at a level of consciousness that I did not even know existed, so it certainly wasn't a goal that I had, and it was truly life-changing for me. It was profound. I was me, but I was not in a body. I could see 360 degrees around me, the same, equally, in a light so bright that it was 10 times brighter than the brightest day in the desert that I had ever seen. And I could see the earth beneath me, and I was embedded into it up to what felt like it would have been my knees. But I wasn't in a physical body. I was more a ray of light, just a golden ray of light coming from this brilliant white space into the form of this kind of crystalline structure that was embedded into the planet. It was just a bizarre, experience if you had certainly never been oriented around this, and it was an awakening to another dimensional version of who we are. And every time I took a deep breath, in the middle of that, I could see the horizon just rising and falling, and it was this beautiful pink, iridescent, translucent, like blanket that would just rise and fall with this huge grace of, like, if you could imagine a stingray swimming through the ocean in slow motion, how their side fins would just, they're so graceful, and this was just so massive. As far as I could see in every direction, this movement was happening with each breath that I took, and what I knew was happening, I had a sensation that light was coming into form through our beingness, and it was coming into the generation of the vibration that we call love. So I knew that in that instant that this is what humanity is actually doing. To whatever degree we allow ourselves to be completely, fully present in any situation and simply be there as the truth of who we are actually bringing love into being in this dimension. And so when you speak about awakening to oneness, to the oneness consciousness, what I am describing is a version of us that is closer to that unified field, that unity version of humanity, than what we dial into when we're just walking around in the normal daily activities.